Hello and welcome to the Cardiff Central podcast. On this week's episode, we discuss the victories over Dragons and Pontypool for the first and Rags. We're also joined by a new voice in Frazier, and we preview the Leon game and try and pick a team out of those who aren't injured or probably being rested after their autumn campaign. Cheers up. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cardiff Central podcast. As me, it's Harley in the hot seat, and I'm joined by Dan. How are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, good, thank you.
So anyone who's watching on YouTube can see we've got an extra voice for the podcast. So Mr. Fraser, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Not too bad, so
Fraser's very kindly agreed to be one of the roving reporter types doing match day vlogs whenever you can make it to cap. But he's also hopefully going to help us out a few times on here on the pod. So first of all, just so the listeners know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about your background in rugby? You know, if you've played, how you came to support the Blue and Blacks.
Yeah. So I'm from Cardiff originally. I grew up in Roath. I've always been, I guess, basically I'm 34, so regional rugby is kind of what I've been around since I was younger, like when I got into it properly. My first game was Cardiff Llanelli, I think, for like my 8th birthday, and it was absolute shit. But Cardiff won, so it was good. And then just been passionate about it ever since. I played in school, like every state Welsh school kid, until 18, and until I realised that I'm just not strong enough or big enough to compete in regular rugby or fast. I did enjoy it growing up, and then since then just like keeping on track of what Cardiff do. I just want Wales to do well in regional in general, but obviously Cardiff supporter at heart.
Yeah, so now there's one very important question we need to ask to know whether or not you fit in now. North or South Terrace?
South Terrace.
Right, that's the correct answer.
Good answer. You also be judged on what school did you go to?
Cardiff High School.
Not
a good
answer. Middle of the road, yeah.
At least we don't have to do a weekly Glantav update.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Fucking Glantav.
Right then, so 2 games to talk about this week from the weekend. So we'll do them chronologically. So with the Rags, absolutely crushing Pontypool to get yet another 6-point game to kick us off. Dan, would you like to talk us through it?
Yeah, back underway after a long old break, because obviously their game last weekend was called off away at Llandovery. Rags started sort of quite slowly. I think Pontypool were on top for most of the sort of opening exchanges. And then, as they have done in a number of games, once they got going, they just sort of took the game away slowly from the opposition. A couple of nice scores outside of half time. Then there was a red card for Pontypool, sort of going into the final quarter, a little bit harsh maybe. And from that point on, it was just sort of game management for the Rags. But yeah, it was, that as has been the case a lot of times, they've sort of played in 15 to 20 minute spells, had too much quality in those, too much cutting edge. And then even where the game looking like it might get a bit close, sort of 55, 60 minutes onwards, I think just the sort of superior fitness that having quite a lot of full-time lads, even if they are only academy lads, in your squad brings, means that we can see games out. And I mean, there's just so much progression from some of the young lads as well. You look at that sort of 3-quarter line of where Ethan Lloyd's come back in at scrum half. He's looked really good. He's linked up really well with Harry Wild, who is improving week on week. And then Steph Emmanuel and Elijah Evans, I think I've mentioned every podcast so far this season, have continued to improve. And it was good to see a couple of guys in the pack as well, stepping up, a couple of semi-pro guys. I thought Aled Ward was really good, switching into 8. Some nice carrying from him in the wider channel, some good footwork. And a couple of the first team lads as well. Danny Southworth looked really good at loose head, because you can have some guys who, I don't want to say drop down, because it kind of feels like it's sort of doing disservice really to the SRC. But when they switch into the seconds, you see some guys who kind of think, yeah, I shouldn't really be here, or I'm meant to be playing at the top level. But Danny, from the word go, was proper invested in the game, done an absolute job on the Pontypool scrum, carried loads, moved the ball well when it was on. So it's good, and obviously we'll come on to injuries in the first team in a bit, but it's looking like he's going to have to step back up now into Challenge Cup mode. So it's good to see him getting some game time and getting looking really sharp as well. But yeah, the only downside on the whole afternoon from a Rags point of view was that Mackenzie Martin went off after sort of 10 to 15 minutes. After a defensive set under the posts with his left shoulder looking ominously sort of hanging. It sounds like he's had a scan and there's no structural damage, which is good. So it doesn't sound like it'd be a long-term thing, but it's going to be sort of a couple of weeks while the soreness and the swelling on that goes down, I'd have thought.
So excellent stuff, and so keeps Cardiff right at the top of the SRC. So for considering at the start of the season we were thinking, oh, we don't know what's going to happen now because it's mostly academy lads. It's turned out into quite the season so far.
Yeah.
Frazier obviously didn't manage to make it this time, but what have you made of the rag season so far?
Yeah, I thought, well, obviously top of the table. That's pretty solid. Yeah, I've mainly been catching up with it on those YouTube highlights via S4C, which a mixed bag. But yeah, no, it's interesting seeing Mackenzie Martin back in the rags. It's quite a change from where he was last year. But yeah, it's a shame he's got injured recently. But yeah, I mean, I guess if academy lads are doing well, top of the table, yeah, it's positive to be honest.
Excellent. So as you keep mentioning Elijah Evans at 13, I feel like I want to bring in one of our listeners' questions. So Martin Jenkins on the Twitter, as Dan has been calling it to me lately. So any news on a short-term replacement for Grady? Obviously, he got injured start of the autumn. Do you think Elijah Evans is there? Is that potentially that step in the short term, or do you think we need to bring in someone?
I mean, ideally, no is the answer for Elijah Evans, in that he's obviously still very young. I think he's turning 20 in the next week or two. That in terms of how you would naturally progress somebody, then the answer is no. But we're not in a position to naturally progress people and work through that, as we've seen with all the youngsters that we've blooded over the last 12 months or so. So, do I think he would it would be dreadful for him? No, I don't. I think he could step up and do a job in the short term, and hopefully, it is only short term if it was required. In terms of the question itself that came in, I don't think Cardiff are looking for a 13 at this point. I don't, it's not sort of, obviously it's not an ideal situation with Ray being the only out and out sort of outside centre in the squad at however old he is now, but it's also not panic stations enough where where we're quite financially restricted that we need to be going into the markets, especially. So I think as things stand, we'll probably progress with Ray as our starter with the likes of Harry Millard and you could ask
Don't say it.
I was going to say Jacob Beetham. I wasn't going to say Josh Adams. Jacob Beetham could potentially slot in there if you needed him to. And then, if Elijah Evans, say, if we Cheetahs at home potentially could do a job in there. And then if we had the 2 Challenge Cup games in January and they've gone quite well so far, like Connacht at home becomes a bit of a dead rubber, then it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to see him slot in that game either, I don't think. So, but just for the rags, he's having a great season. His try assist for Tom Bowen on Saturday. He takes a very slow, very loopy, bouncing pass, spins out of one tackle, breaks the line in the flash of an eye, and then at top speed draws the last defender and puts in a great pass for Bowen to run onto, which is also quite tricky because Bowen himself is absolutely rapid, so timing it with him is quite tricky. But yeah, he's looking really good, and if it was needed, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I think they'll probably muddle through with what they got in the senior squad for now.
So I think that's our rack segment covered. So moving on to the first team now. So it's not news, but we beat the Dragons. That's 19 league games on the bounce. A league streak that goes all the way back to Boxing Day 2014. and sometime in March in the Challenge Cup was the last time they beat us in 2015. So Cardiff come up top 31-23. Very, very slow first 20, I think, is my polite way of putting it for Cardiff, where we were under the cosh a bit from Dragons, but they couldn't convert. Then we had a really good period, about 15-20 minutes either side of half time, before Dragons kind of coming back in it when it looked like we'd taken off the gas. So Frazier is the newbie on the pod. Like, you go first with your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the initial 20 minutes was pretty difficult. I think the Dragons looked pretty good, and there was quite a lot of continuity in their play. I was surprised, but then, as is always the case, they just have no capacity to convert any chances or like go beyond a phase in like the red zone or whatever. And obviously, Cardiff defended well in that area. And initially, I mean, Josh Adams was having an absolute mare after like 16 minutes. He looked really shaky and just like knock-ons. He just still looked out of it, but then obviously came back into the game and looked much better much more solid in the second half. I guess, I mean, Alex Mann coming on was kind of like a little bit of a turning point. I don't know if he instigated it, but it seemed to from that point and his charge down, it seemed to change a little bit, and Cardiff got back into it. And obviously scored that try from the driving line out, which I thought was pretty good from Alid, like pinpointing the gap to go into. And then, I think the try from or the run from Millard at 38 minutes was pretty good. And I thought they looked good. And obviously, the second half, I think Cardiff, straight after the break, really solid, some good play. The try in 42 minutes with that delayed pass by Winnett was really nice. And I think that sums up the difference between the two teams, was just that example of class from Winnett. And that was just not seen in the Dragons team. They had some good moments, like Anira Owen looked pretty good at times. I think Lloyd Evans looked all right with some of his passing, but it's just they kept on mucking it up, and Cardiff scrambled defence pretty well. And then the last 20 minutes after we kind of consolidated our win, looked pretty comfortable. Even if Dragons had a lot of the ball, it seemed the defence was pretty good. And I was quite impressed by Morgan Lloyd, who came on for the Dragons, but that's a side note. But yeah, I think it was a good solid win by Cardiff, to be honest.
And Dan, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair summary of the game. I think Cardiff will be concerned again about slow starts. It's been a bit of a theme of the season. And this game reminds me quite a lot of the first game of the season against Zebra, actually, where we're playing a team that are going to be at the foot of the table, and we get the bonus point win, but like Fraser said, it was a solid win, but it's nothing more than that. And probably against sides at the foot of the table, you'd like to come away and think, we are considerably better than them. Really, it is trickier again in Welsh derbies than against Zebra, because there's always going to be that little bit more sort of tetchiness and a little bit of edge to it. But against the better team, if we play like that in the opening 20 minutes, they will take the game away from us. Dragons lacked a lot of quality, and they got into the red zone a number of times, but they never really looked like scoring a try in that opening quarter. So that it's something that the Cardiff coaches, and I think Gethin spoke about it in the post-match presser as well, saying that we need to go away and figure out what's going on there, because obviously some sort of messaging or the way the team is being set up isn't conducive to getting up and running in that opening 20 minutes. I thought the kick game took a long time to get going, which didn't really give us a lot of possession and territory. We got on the wrong side of Whitehouse, which is quite easy to do because I don't think he really knows what his right side is at times. But we just got to. I think maybe that we're overthinking a little bit about sussing the opposition out too much in that opening quarter, rather than just turning up and playing our game and sort of imprinting our style of play on the game. It takes until realistically that first 10 minutes of the second half where we played proper like Cardiff rugby and moved the ball a bit. So yeah, that's sort of I think the big thing about the game, but there was a lot to like with the way we moved the ball when we were playing well in that middle part of the game, and yeah, a lot of good individuals. You know, Cam Winnett's come back from Wales and look, he was absolutely class. I think Fraser's right to point out Alex Mann, who looked physically bigger, I thought, coming off the bench after his time out, and really sort of, you know, I think there was a lot of focus on what Shane Lewis-Hughes might do in that Dragons team coming back to Cardiff, but I thought Alex Mann probably won that battle, really, of the sixes. I thought Corey Domachowski also coming on quite early, looked really good as well. Got his hands on the ball a lot, and the accuracy of his passing was really good.
And some ferocious ruck cleaning as well, which
There
is
was
what I
some.
like to see. I love to see ruck cleaning like that.
No harm in that at all. And then I thought Ali Davis and Callum Sheedy deserve a word as well. Just their partnership has grown a lot. You know, there was a good few question marks probably in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season over them, but they are developing quite nicely as a pair. Alid is, you know, we keep saying it, he's not Thomas Williams. Nobody is Thomas Williams, but he is, the way he's controlling the tempo now really suits us. And in that he's not always going to play 100 miles an hour like Thomas does, but when it's on, he will move the ball quickly, and that is suiting us quite well. So, you know, no complaints really. It's another win over the Dragons, but there, as with that game against Edinburgh off the back of, you know, a long break and a bit of rustiness, you know, we do have levels to go through if we want to be winning a Challenge Cup. And I think particularly it's sort of building really these next few weeks to that Ospreys game on New Year's Day, which historically we do tend to lose. So that's where we've got to try and get ourselves in sort of peak performance for, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I said just sort of running over some of the stats of the game though. It's surprising how close it all turned out towards the end. So it's sort of meters per carry were about 1.3, 1.4 each. Tackle completion was about 85 each. Possession was probably slightly in Dragons' favour. Clean defenders beaten was identical. It's really mad when you have a look at it, but it just seemed to be that weirdly, like you'd see those stats and you'd think there's a fairly even game throw, but what seemed to happen was Cardiff had their middle patch and then Dragons had things inside. One other Dragons player I do want to put out, I know it's Cardiff pod, I thought George Knott got some very crucial steals in the line out, which I thought caused us a few problems. So I just, you know, nice to see him thing. But yeah, otherwise, it was great to see him, Josh Adams back. I think that first 16 minutes, it was, you know, you could tell he hadn't played in a while, and he hadn't, and it's fit in a lot longer ago. I remember me and Dan saying before the Six Nations, saying Josh Adams probably could have done with being rested for this back then, even before the autumn. And Harry Millard as well was just absolutely cutting through defenders for fun, which is absolutely exciting to see. And another thing, because one thing we have given Sheedy stick for, 5 out of 5 on his kick off the tee, which, you know, when it's that kind of Sheedy, you know you're in for a good game.
Yeah, I would shout out, Ray Lilo. I know he's mentioned earlier. He's like 38 now. He's just every game he is solid. Just he's like always does his job defensively, attackingly, and it's just never seems to age or get any slower or faster. He's just always the same consistent player, whichever 12 or 13 he's playing. I thought he had a pretty solid game as always. Just shout out to him.
So you're saying one more year for Ray?
I think just keep going, just see when it stops.
Keep that dice rolling.
Yeah.
So now we've had a nice win in the ERC. It's stopped momentum again as we're now breaking from that domestic competition, which is an issue which I could go for a full solid hour on how stupid the scheduling is for rugby, but that's not the point. In the meantime, if you are enjoying this pod, why not try liking or subscribing to us on YouTube, the Rap channel on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, give the pod a review. It really does help grow the brand, and also it's always nice to hear your feedback. Now, I say we're moving on to the Challenge Cup, a competition we have some good heritage in, winning in 2010, 2018. What are our thoughts for it this year, though? Are we going to take it? Do you think we should take it properly seriously, or use it as a chance to rest some of these players who've had an awful lot of minutes in the season?
I think the answer to that is both, probably. In that, I think I think you have to take it relatively seriously from all Welsh clubs' point of view. I know I was listening to Rap from Monday, and you guys were saying that you don't really care that much about it, but ultimately, this is a trophy chance for all four Welsh sides. You know, it's only a couple of games. You get 2-3 wins in the pool stage, and once you get to knockout rugby, anything goes. You know, 3 wins there, and you're looking at a final, which, and particularly for Cardiff, but for all Welsh sides, the final's in Cardiff this year. So that's a big sort of prize at the end of the line. But at the same time, we do need to rest and rotate players. So if I was jockey, I think I'd be saying, I'm gonna pick which games I really go for here. Both home games, particularly maybe one of the French games. But each game there'll be a 23, which I generally, you know, sometimes you get a coach like, no, we've put a team out which we think can win, but you know really that they're like, no, he's rested everybody here, they've thrown this game. But I think they should be putting a 23 out in each one, which jockey genuinely thinks can win the game. There's no reason why. There's actually no reason why we can't win all 4 of these games. I would say on paper, particularly when you take into account the French sides don't actually care. Like they're not fussed at all.
I was going to bring on, so move up the discussion a bit because our opponents on Saturday are Leon. Yeah. Unfortunately, that game isn't available to view on Bowman Sports. You've got to pay extra on EPCR TV. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet, or wait until S4C or do a replay, or sometimes EPCR TV will just let you have it for free, like 4 hours after the game. So Leon, they are currently 13th in top 14. They're having a horrid time. Shout out to Hugh Griffin for Part Rugby and Maz from their top 14 connections pod that was out today. They pointed out that Leon also have their starting halfbacks are injured. So this is looking very much like we're going to get an Espoirs team at home. So it's a good chance to pick up a win with maybe, I don't know, a 1.5 strength team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, I was looking up, Leon have lost 5 times in a row. I think they're on a 5-game losing streak. And obviously, yeah, as you mentioned, French teams don't tend to take the Challenge Cup very seriously. So, I mean, those 2 things combined to make it like a fair opportunity. I think I was looking at, we've beaten them the last 2 times we've played them in the Challenge Cup, which I think, you know, was 2018, 2019 or something like that. Ray Lilo was playing in both those games I saw, so that's a good continuity. But yeah, I'd say it's a fair chance to win against them. I don't see why not. Yeah, with 1.5 strength team or something like that. And yeah, I always enjoy a run in the cup. I think it's really important, and it can get you really excited. Excited about going back into URC. It gives you a bit of a boost. And it just sounds good beating Leon. You're like, oh yeah, we beat Leon. That sounds good to, you know, a layman. So I'm pretty excited about
it. Dan, any other thoughts on the opposition?
I do just think generally, like, I don't think they'll matter too much this weekend because they'll rest a few. But you look at their squad and you think, how the hell are they second bottom of the top 14? Like, go for Gomez Sarr, the props, been in the French side in recent years. You got Lavanini, I know is like a walking yellow card option, but he's still like experienced international. Back row, Cretin's been in the France squad, a couple of Georgians in there as well. And then some of their outside backs, they got Randrandra, Montejoane, Niniashvili, the young Georgian lad. Like,
he's injured at the moment, so that's fair. He's also going to La Rochelle next season.
But you just kind of think, how the hell is a squad like that second bottom of the league? Like that is crazy. Yeah, I think Leon is a great trip, by the way, if anyone's going this weekend. I was there in 2017-18. The supporter club meet at the Wallace Bar, which is in the middle of town there, before going out to the ground, which is well outside the ground. Go in the Wallace Bar. Don't make the mistake I did of walking up to the bar with my GCSE French in my back pocket, giving it all un grand beer, s'il vous plaît. That gives me the beer, merci, thinking I'm well in with the French, and then the barman just shouts, "I'm from Hull." Like, so don't get all cocky with your French while you're there. But yeah, good trip, good ground, good supporters out there as well. The supporters club of Cardiff and Leon have like linked up quite a few times when they've been going back and forth. So, but yeah, just I think both times we've won there, even though it's a couple of years ago now, I'm sure they've had coaching changes and stuff. It's just because we've moved the ball really well. Like whenever we have quite a good record against French sides generally of being able to sort of just about meet the physical battle up front where you know they're going to be massive no matter what pack they turn up with. But being accurate, playing to width and moving around cleverly with the kicking game has been really successful for Cardiff against French opposition in the last few years. And I don't, I've watched a few of their highlights today, and I don't really look at them and think that that would be any different for Cardiff. So, and going back to what I said earlier about sort of stamping our authority on the game, you don't have to, it'll be a different Lyon team. You won't have prepared for a couple of these players. Don't worry about that too much. Just go out, play some good Cardiff rugby, and if a worst case scenario is we come back with 4 tries and a losing bonus point or something, 2 points to start it is not a particularly bad case for the Blue and Blacks going into a home game against the Cheetahs either. So I think that's where we start from, and hopefully I think a team that hasn't won since October and isn't too fussed about the competition, if you sort of suck the life out of them early, they're not going to be tempted to launch too much of a comeback, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for me though, I think because we've got the French team away, because for some reason French teams have it written in the PCR contract, they can't come to cap anymore. I don't know why. Because I think the last 3 seasons, none of that all the French teams just so happen to be our away game, not our home game. Weird how that always works out. But I think this is the first weekend, because if they're going to take it seriously, it's usually a home game in the first week, and then if they lose that, then they tend to stop giving a shit. So I feel more nervous about this than the Perpignan game. But yeah, I still think we've got plenty of time. So for a bit of fun, shall we do our 98% probably wrong team prediction?
I've got some team news as well. Just for
cool.
People may not know, just from this is top level Instagram stalking. James Botham and Ben Thomas are both in Dubai right now, which I would suggest probably rules them out of this weekend. So I think they've probably been told, look, lads, you can play against Dragons, and then, not in the case of Jim, who's had a fair few physical shifts for Wales, to be fair, over the autumn. But then come back in last week and then have a week off before getting stuck into, well, if they come back for Cheetahs or not, we'll see. But certainly the festive derby. So those two are definitely out. Mac Martin's definitely out. I think Ed Byrne, you can probably rule out. His calf looked like it had pinged against.
He did not look comfy.
The Dragons.
It's Rory Jennings.
Well, Rory Jennings is a big question mark. Then obviously, it looks like he's failed his HIA, and I thought he looked quite groggy when he got up from it as well, to be honest. So I think there'll be a big question mark next to Rory Jennings when we get to 12 as well. That we'll probably have to do an if Jennings is fit and an if Jennings isn't fit option.
All right, so Fraser, I'm going to let you kick off. Would you rather start with backs or forwards?
Should we start with forwards?
All right, cool. So start front row. Who do you think would be our starting front row?
I think Evan Lloyd would get a start, do you reckon, at hooker? I'd say I think they'll probably start Domachowski or Azarati. I don't think they'll start them both. And then I'm trying to think, Reese Litterick would probably get a game, do you reckon? He hasn't played much. Not sure. What about you guys? What do you reckon? Who would come in?
I think Dom is almost certain to start loose head.
Just because Burns out.
Yeah, and he obviously wasn't in the Wales reckoning. So I think you can, and I think you're right about Lloyd, just the way he's been flicking the hookers back and forth and stuff as well. They are our only 2 fit hookers at the moment. So I think he probably switches them around this week, and because I thought Daffy was actually quite good. I
thought Evan Lloyd was great last weekend as well. Had yet another barnstorming line break.
There's like a line break. the most energy expended by anyone running, I reckon, Evan Lloyd. Just the way his limbs proper go up and down. Brilliant running style. But yeah, so
clearly never seen me play.
And then tight head is an interest. Yeah, does he rest Azar or not for this one? I think you can't have as a play in every minute of every game for us, because we've seen that we will break him slowly. He's quite like it's quite durable for a prop, but yeah, you can't go on forever. So the question is, do you rest him away at France, a French team who will still have a pretty big pack, or do you rest him at home to the Cheetahs, who also will probably turn up with quite a big pack as a South African team? Uh, I think I'd be happy Litterick in there at 3 this one. No,
Yeah, I that's my sort of thinking was maybe we see Litterick start and possibly Aston off the bench, just so then you are reducing minutes.
yeah, I think the other aspect I think to only slightly to
Or we can give
consider.
Will Davis King some minutes.
Yeah, and also is that Az has obviously been in camp. He's got quite a young family. He's been at the Vale quite a bit. It's coming up to Christmas. Do you just like from a management style, like off pitch stuff, say, look, don't come to France this weekend, mate. Stay at home with the family for a couple of days off, and then get stuck back into it next weekend type thing. Is Jockey's quite good at that sort of stuff. So I wonder if that might be what he's thinking there.
Yeah. Right. So lock pairing. I think Teddy comes in after having a month of holding tackle bags. I think he stays there.
Yeah.
Partnering with him though, I mean, McNally's starting to get to the point where I think he's so knackered he's starting to do sick things.
Stupid penalties.
Do we give him a rest and do we bring in, say, Seb, and you rely on Teddy to do a little bit more grunt work and have Seb being the more athletic-y one?
I think so. I think he did make some silly errors, McNally, and he's 34. He's like fairly old, so I think he probably just needs to.
I mean, yeah, I'm happy
a little
to
bit of a
go.
rest.
I'm happy to go with that. The one thing I would say is that Seb come on on Saturday, and I don't know what minute it was. I didn't clip it up because I can't bother. But he immediately hits a ruck with his left arm tuck and just sort of drops his shoulder on somebody's head. You think, oh my god, do not learn, mate, at all.
No, he does not.
But he's got a new haircut and he wanted to show that off a bit. So yeah, maybe that'll put it. I just think it's getting to the point now where we've said every week, surely McNally gets a rest. I actually just think Jockey's just going to literally rinse him until he just can't actually move anymore.
He is getting every fucking penny out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy, like Teddy and Seb, but I think Seb historically has quite good games against French teams. So that's not based on any actual evidence. That's purely me just sort of anecdotally deciding that I must have seen him play well against a French team once.
The vibes.
Yeah,
sounds about right. Sounds about right. Yeah.
I may occasionally bring stats in, but we are mostly a vibes based pod. Dan, I'll let you take lead on the back row then.
I think 6 and 8 pick themselves in Alex Mann and Alan Lawrence. With Donnell looking like he's done for a little while there. I think his shoulder was out as he came off the pitch, so it's going to be a good few weeks, possibly months of no Ben Donnell. But yeah, Mann straight in at 6. I've no qualms about that. And with McMartin now out and both are not available, and I don't think Falatau's quite there yet. Then Lawrence is pretty much our only 8 option there at the moment. And then there's just sort of the question about 7 really is that I think Young he didn't have his greatest game. He was quite quiet actually on Saturday. But he's still our best option at 7. But just sort of when and where you rotate Dan Thomas in and out of that team at some point. But I think if we want to stretch the French sides and you can get a few turnovers there if you're quick over the ball, I would probably stick with Young for this one and then maybe consider Dan Thomas against the more physical and direct Cheetah side the following week then.
Yeah, I think that, just because you're not chopping and changing too many people week on week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think anything you want to add to that, Frazier?
No, I think Thomas Young would suit the match, and maybe his pace in the wide channels would be really beneficial against a team like Lyon. So yeah, I'd agree.
Right, on to halfbacks, Frazier.
I'd be tempted to stick with Alan Davis and Sheedy. I don't know, but yeah, because they're just going well, and I don't know. I feel like Sheedy's kind of getting into his rhythm a bit and like settling into the team. And yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to risk injury, but I just think you want to give him more game time. Yeah, I'd probably go for just keeping it settled, control from 9 and 10, because Alex, as I'd mentioned previously, did well controlling that kind of game, and I was impressed by him. So yeah, I'd probably stick with them at 9 and 10 really.
Dan, anything you want to add to that?
No, agree with that. Yeah, I'd,
quite agree.
yeah, I'm happy with that. I think De Gea will I think we quite like playing sort of players against former teams and former countries. So De Gea against Cheetahs maybe makes sense there. Then you'd keep Sheedy for this weekend. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to leave the centres for now because that could be quite an interesting position. So for me, back three, I'm thinking you got to give Adams another run out, and I'm thinking the question is do we rest Winner or do we give him another game? Because I can't remember if Beetham's fit again.
He was the travelling reserve on Saturday, yeah, so he'd be fit.
But we might, as we go on to the centres, we might need him there.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, do we keep Winner at fullback and then stick with Millard? I don't know if there's any reason Stevens. I don't know if he had an injury or if it was just selection.
I think Millard was just ahead of him. I think Stevens is available, as far as I'm aware.
So I was going to stick with Millard because when a player like that's on form, you've just got to keep playing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
back there.
I think the 15 jersey probably links into the centre a little bit in that if Jennings is fit, then I think if he's come through the protocols, I think he does start at 12, and then I think you probably do start Beetham at 15 then and give Winnett his rest now. But if Jennings doesn't make it, then for this week I'd put Beetham at 12 to sort of continue that there's a continuity around style of play that Jockey likes. Beetham at 12 and then ask Winnett to play again at 15 on the hope that Jennings probably passes the protocols ahead of next week and then you rest him against Cheetahs then. So that's probably the with and without Jennings aspect of the team selection. Otherwise, I don't. You're looking at maybe Lilo 12 or Gabe Hamer-Webb at 15. Maybe he's played there a handful of times.
Well, I'd say probably if you're looking for a 15, you're probably looking at either Adams or Stevens, as they've both played a fair bit more. Adams played quite a fair bit at 15, not for us, but he did.
Yeah, Adams has. I think
for Wales, and I thought he was actually pretty good at 15.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. I don't think Stevens has played at fullback professionally.
Or has he just been listed as
potentially? He's definitely never worn 15 at professional level. He might have switched in there. That obviously the way he's wearing 23 or 11, and he switched and wouldn't show that. But he's never started a game at 15. And against Leon, I'd have quite sort of issues with. He's all right in the air, Stevens, but just sort of naturally he is just quite small. So
yeah.
But yeah, Adams / Hamer-Webb, and then with the other one on the right wing is sort of your very backup option for fullback there.
That's so good. All right, then. So Dan, take us away on all the different. We sort of discussed the centre combos. It's Jennings and Ray, or it's Beetham and Ray, or it's Ray and Millard.
yeah. I think it'll be one of Jennings and Beetham at 12, and then they'll try and. Just because we know how Jockey really likes that ball play in 12, and that's what I think it would be major reorganization for Ray to go in there, because I mean that changes the entire look of your backline there. Ray's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he's not a distributor. He's definitely not a footballer. He is you at 12 you generally be using him as a pretty much direct sort of crash ball option there. So my feeling is that they'll run Beetham at 12 for most of this week on the basis that then they've probably run Jennings there quite a bit over the international break as well, where Ben Thomas was away. And so if they can, they'll get Jennings and Beetham at 12 and 15. If not, Beetham goes in and then either they ask Winnett to continue or it's Adams and Hamer-Webb in the back three, I think. I think a centre partnership of Lilo and Millard would be quite far down the list of where they would go to.
You want to say something there, Fraser?
Well, yeah, I'd probably advocate for Rory Jones not playing based on what happen. I don't know. It did feel like he did was properly concussed. He seemed pretty out of it. I don't know. I mean, obviously it depends if he passes the protocols, but I'd assume he probably won't play. So yeah, I think I'd agree with Beetham coming in at 12 if that's a possibility. Definitely.
Yeah.
Of course, the other option available to them is that they fly me out. I look quite like Rory Jennings, and therefore I will. They might realise after about 30 seconds of the game when I'm puffing, I'm chasing one kickoff. But it's. I mean, I'm available if they want to fly me out, all expenses paid. Just putting that out there.
Dan, you do it for half expenses paid and a pint.
That's sadly true.
Because let's be fair, who wouldn't? Moving on to the bench. So bench hooker picks itself. So just because that's going to be Dav Hughes if we think Evan Lloyd's going to start, and Danny Southwood fills in the loose head jersey. So tight head replacement tight head. We sort of briefly touched on it. If we think Littrick's going to start, we can go with Azarati or Will Davis King being our main. I mean, a real rogue shout would be Joe Carroll, but I very much doubt that, given he's only had a few minutes. He's playing for the Rags really and still learning.
I think Azarati probably yeah on the bench just in case it starts going a bit south. You got someone like solid to come off. Obviously, yeah, I like the idea of giving her a rest and staying at home and with his family. But I think yeah, it'd be a more secure option to have him on the bench.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that. I just at some point I think we haven't done like much new stuff this week, but Wales Online last week, Steph Thomas ran that Litterick has signed for Edinburgh. We obviously it's not confirmed at the moment, so we don't say anything's definite till it's confirmed. But Steph is pretty bang on usually with them sort of things. So that means that at some point we will have to see what Will Davis King is about if he's going to be. But yeah, maybe this isn't the game necessarily to do that. It's a tricky one with the tight heads, and like particularly for predicting it, a lot of it will depend on what conversations they're having away from rugby point of view. Because yeah, from a pure rugby point of view, you would stick with Azza. But yeah, I'm happy to put Azza down there. There are still big question marks about Davis King. I think at 27, I think he is now. He really should have be kicking on, and even though he was a bit of a late starter, I would have expected him to have played more first team games now. So yeah, it's there are big question marks about his scrummaging certainly.
I think he got a bit screwed over because he was sort of brought through as the ideal tight head to Reece Carey's loose head because they're both very similar height, and then you get some sized hooker, and then it sort of helps. But I think Mark from Suspens and Sidesteps are saying he's probably about 2 inches too big, too tall, and that just means that he can't quite get into the right positions. But so for the back five cover, so the 1920. Well, first of all, do you think we're going to go 5-3 or 6-2?
I think 5-3.
5-3 probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, just I do like us as a 6-2, but I think if he's gone 5-3 against the Drags, I think he'll probably stick with that, especially with our sort of deepening injuries in the back row there as well.
I was thinking our deepening injuries in the backs as well. But,
well, there is that element.
We're going to go revolutionary, and we're going to have 3 people on the bench. Yeah. So, who do we think are going to fill that 1920 jersey?
Well, 20 will probably be Dan Thomas if we're starting young. I think I'm trying to think if we've got any other back row real options. The only other one that comes to my head immediately is Lucas De La Rua steps up from the Rags, but I think I'd rather just leave him with the Rags.
Or play the Undertaker music and Fanato's back.
Well, yeah, that'd be great. But
I'll say that if he's fit, he starts for me because as much as I love Falato, he is no good off the bench.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's definitely getting on the stuff.
But yeah, I think probably I'd go Dan Thomas as the back row cover, and then the second row is a shootout between whether you totally rest McNally / is McNally actually going to be much of a bench option, and then or the other one is Rory Thornton.
I suppose that because at least if you go that way, you can always drop Seb back to 8 if if there's an issue at 6 or 8. which I hate. I do hate it. I hate it as much as second row's playing six. But at least you've got cover there, and you're not necessarily having to do dual open sides, which could work and also could not. Or or worse, Alex Mann at 8, which, well, to be fair, wasn't too bad for the under-20s.
Well, he's a former Cardiff City Academy, so he's always got decent footwork at the back of the scrum there as well. So, but yeah, I think I'd be happy with Thornton coming off the bench in the last quarter for just being super tall and winning the lineouts, really. So.
It is very useful. It's amazing how well our games go when we win lineouts. Frazier?
Yeah, no, I'd probably plump for Rory Thornton coming off the bench, just solid. Yeah, keeps the line out steady. I think that's a good shout, definitely.
All right, then moving on to the back replacements. Whichever one of you two wants to go first.
Well, I guess Ellis Bevan on the bench. I guess is Johan Mulder? Is he fit or not? But yeah, I'd go Ellis Bevan on the bench.
I'm 90%. I saw Mulder warming up as a travelling reserve, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure exactly what he looks like. Still.
Yeah, I think I just remember him coming on and he wasn't brilliant when he came on when I've seen him before. But yeah, I'd say Ellis Bevan would probably be my shout on the cover of
Unless
9.
He's on Wales rest because he ended up probably having a fair few more minutes than he was expecting.
That's true.
I don't think we'd rush to because he hasn't played much for us prior then to the autumn as well. And I think also just to add something on the Wales rest because I know James mentioned it on Wrap on Monday. My understanding is different from his around resting Wales players. As far as I'm aware, there is no requirement to do that as part of the PRA. The Ospreys are choosing to rest their players at the points that they are, like the Ulster away game and like not taking them to Zebra. I think obviously we will rest players, like we've told Ben Thomas and James Botham to go on holiday this week, because there is still a duty of care from us to those players. But I don't, as far there used to be something around they couldn't play like 6 games in a row or something stupid like that. The rule used to be under the old PRA, but under the current one, there's only sort of that Gatland can pick up the phone and say, please, can you give him a rest because he looks quite tired, and Jockey can either say yes or no and then put the phone down. So yeah, I don't think that there's any sort of enforced rest period coming up. We're just choosing when and where to give lads time off so that they don't break.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with Bevan. I said if only because I still don't know what to make of Mulder yet. I mean, admittedly, he hasn't had a lot of game time, but also it was like quite surprising. The other two outside backs, do we think I'm going along the lines of De Beer and Gabe Hamer-Webb.
Yeah,
this sort of thing, just because I think that gives you lots of coverage. We might see what happened at pre-season with Tinas moving to 12. As you know, so we keep that dual playmaking option. Gabe Hamer-Webb then covers you back 3. As I said, Millard or Push Adams comes in for 13, and obviously Beetham can go back to fullback. So I think that basically covers everything.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Any calls for anyone else?
Don't think so. No. It'd be interesting to see who travels as travelling reserves. I think the Rags might take a bit of a hit of availability against RGC on Saturday, because if you're looking at Rhys Barrett and Danny Southworth both not going to be available, so they're not going to have any loose head options from the first team. I think Joe Cowell may end up going as travelling reserve, so they were not going to have him.
It would be him or Lives King if Faz is playing.
Delarue may end up going as travelling reserve as well, as the only real other back row option available to the first team. And you could see one or two of the. I think Steph Emmanuel went to Glasgow. Who do we play? Which Scottish team do we play away? Edinburgh away, wasn't it? Yeah. He went to Edinburgh, so they might, with a sort of lack of options through that 10-12 channel, you might see somebody like Steph or Harry Wild on the plane up there as well. But yeah, I don't think they'd be cold-blooded away at Lyon in the Challenge Cup necessarily. I think they'll just be sort of travelling for the experience of the whole thing, which will, as much as playing is good, also getting that sort of experience under the belt is good for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap our 23. So in the correct order, we've got Cam Winnett at fullback, Josh Adams at 14, Ray Lilo 13. We're going Jacob Beetham on the side of caution for 12, or if not, it'd be Rory Jennings with Beetham going to fullback. Then Harry Millard at 11, Sheedy and Alan Davis your halfbacks. And then in the pack, we've got Corey Domachowski, Evan Lloyd, Reese Littrick, Seb Davis, Teddy Williams, Alex Mann, Thomas Young, and Big Al Lawrence. Sounds like a decent first start in 15. And then on the bench, we've got Dav Hughes, Danny Southworth, Kieran Azarati, Rory Thornton, Dan Thomas, Ellis Bevan, Tina Stabir, and Gabe Hamer-Webb. And I'll be honest, I think that's a side where we've probably rotated a few players, but still should be strong enough to beat a we should beat a bottom top 14 side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be confident that they could go and do a job with that 23 certainly.
All right, so that's the Leon preview. So there was one major bit of news that came out in Welsh Rugby over the last week. So just want to get both of your thoughts on it. So it was announced on Wales Online that the WRU are close to an agreement with the regions for a new sort of controlled thing. So Gatland's going to have a lot more say over the teams, where players play, what positions, etc. And that's going to be in exchange for increasing the funding cap. Although it does also say that the benefactors are still going to take the majority of the hit. So what are everyone's thoughts, at least on first looking at it?
I think my concern would be, I guess, currently I don't have much faith in what Gatland's trying to do with Wales, so I don't know about giving him more control over what the regions do. I mean, for example, with Ben Thomas, like chopping and changing where he thinks he should be playing, doesn't seem like Gatland, or at least the coaching team, really know what they want players to be doing, and their game plan seems a bit frail. But I mean, also it does make sense to have more collaboration, a bit more like continuity between the national team and the regions. So yeah, I'm a bit not ambiguous about it, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I think I need to think about it a bit more and like really dig deep into it. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
I've softened quite a lot from my initial reading of it. It's a very different proposal to the one that we discussed before about golden shares and stuff like that. That was quite a sort of stark. The WRU are coming in and taking over and hide your wives and your children type thing. But this having read it a few times, and obviously, what Steph Thomas is reporting there is going to be accurate to the information that he's got, but it's there's always conversations ongoing, so it may have changed a little bit, or it won't be 100% spot on. But if it's what he's reported, I actually don't think it's far off what we currently have in terms of. It's not so much the WRU controlling it. I don't think it's a lot more the WRU can request this, and I think they're calling it like the national committee or something like that. I mean, something suitably WRU wanky title of it, and yeah, it's like that whoever's sitting on can request that a player plays in this position, or that they can request that a player gets this many minutes. They can request that a player leaves and joins another club if they're within these players' national interest. But ultimately, the clubs can say no to that, and there is a financial penalty then around that. That you've got the WRU will commit to pay in X amount of money. 80% of that is guaranteed, and then 20% of that is based on, if you reject the request, you'll have some money withdrawn, and if you don't produce enough internationals, you have some money withdrawn and all that sort of stuff. So as long as Cardiff were in a position, if they came out and said, "Look, that is the deal. We are going to retain our independent status by being strong and saying no if we don't believe it's in Cardiff's best interest, and that we're in a financial position where if we lose some of that money, we can, it won't harm us. It won't mean that we're less competitive. The owners can make it up. It's not going to put us in a bad. We're not in a financial position where we just have to say yes to everything, so that we maintain our independence within that. I don't necessarily think it's that bad of a deal for Cardiff in terms of taking quite a lot of debt off the balance sheet, taking interest payments off it. In return for, it's gone from golden share to these sort of B shares, which are actually worthless. Or they grant the WRU as sort of like an observer spot on our board, which they can observe from a cupboard in the other side of the ground if they want to, or something like that, via cup and string. We can maybe sort that out. But the only, it's like my question would be, one, sort of, I think it's the thick of it, is the quote is sort of, how are you fucking us? That is like, there must be some different angle to this from the WRU, because they are just sort of eminently untrustworthy. But mainly from a Cardiff perspective of, if we can say we're happy to maintain our independence by saying no, and we're happy that we're, in a financial position where the owners can put some money in to cover that, or, not getting 100% won't leave us disadvantaged to another Welsh side who might say yes to everything because they do need all that money, then it's not a great deal, but we're not in a great situation in Welsh rugby generally, are we? So we beggars can't be choosers and all that sort of stuff. But it's not the initial no, definitely not, take it away, that I thought it might have been on first glance. But yeah, I think we will. I think the club have committed that. So they replied to somebody on Twitter in the week to doing a Q&A in the new year, and they will need to really communicate well with supporters about what it means for us in practice in terms of maintaining independence. But yeah, I'm not, on second read this morning, have it this Wednesday now, it came out on Tuesday. I'm not staunchly no. I'm sort of getting splinters in my arse and sitting on the fence waiting for a bit more information about it.
There's a couple of things for me. So one of them is they're refinancing the debt that they took out and then put on us.
Yeah.
So hang on. So frankly, if you've loaned us a debt, that should be irrelevant. Like, we shouldn't have to be punished for that. One thing they do say is that they are looking under these proposals that the salary, our salary cap goes up. So from financial year 26, which I'm guessing is the 26-27 season, that goes up to 5.1 million. So I think we're going to have another year of 4.5 million, which actually, to be fair, I think we're actually doing quite well on that. I mean, I think by the time we get to Six Nations, I think it could all go utterly peaked on. But I think we're holding our own. That goes up to big jump up, 6.6 million then for the 27-28 season, then 6.7 million for the 28-29 season. Those are guaranteed, and then it says that they're going to go up to 6.8 million the following year, but after the first 3 years it's going to depend on WRU financial performance. So that's a secret. But if that's put up, as Dan said, of the money that's getting paid in by the WRU, 8% is guaranteed, 20% goes on things like, if we can, if the WRU and the club agree to play X player in Y position and they don't, that's there's a penalty in that. But it seems to be that there's you agree it in the season beforehand, and they might make some requests, but those requests won't affect benefit payments. Other things, like, again, as Dan said, so what they want in return is approval of shortlists for CEOs and head coaches and S&C staff. They want to have a lot more influence on the squad as a whole's S&C plans, strength condition, plus individual plans for the players in national interest, which mostly, and the wanky board is the Church of England, Centre of Excellence. That you're referring to. So
that's such a stupid name as well. It doesn't really, the Centre of Excellence is an academy in my mind. Like, why are they calling that the committee which Gatland and that'll sit on if he's still around? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that's not really a stickler for. That's just why do the WRU name them such stupid things all the time?
The other thing is they will have even more of a say over non-Welsh qualified signings, but that's already a committee thing anyway. You've got to get that approval from the PRB, so don't think much changes there. my big worry is Gatland seems very anti non-Welsh qualified players, which, considering he built an unbeaten run on an originally non-Welsh qualified player in Hadley Parks. That is
I do think in defence of Gatland on that one, I think what he was saying that was a little bit correct in terms of like the non-Welsh qualified players that we've got in Wales at the moment, not just Cardiff, although we are guilty of this as well, but they're not top quality. And the previously, with Jerry Collins and Xavier Rush and Ben Blair and Regan King and all these type of people, but we're sort of, and not through the fault of the regions, through the fault of the WRU, we're just having to bodge our squads with overseas players at the moment, and sort of, we're all saying we're not convinced by Joanne Mulder yet. Ultimately we're carrying the non-Welsh qualified players, our third choice scrum half, which is the WRU's fault because they fucked us so much, so we haven't been able to, we've lost Thomas, we haven't been able to sort of succession plan for that. But yeah, like I think Gatland would admit that it's not necessarily our fault that we've got to this point, but we do, as all four teams, need to reevaluate sort of exactly what we're looking for in a non-Welsh qualified player. I look at the Dragons on the weekend, and why wouldn't they start Harry Wilson in midfield? He's not going to be on small amount of money coming over from Australia. He's played a fair bit of Super Rugby. I get, they want to blood their youngsters, and Joe Westwood looks a talent, and Aaron Owen has got something about him, but if you want to be targeting and winning your Welsh derbies, you put in your best team on the pitch, and surely Harry Wilson is. If he's not your best player, then that's just another example of bodging sort of holes in the squad with anybody that you can find, essentially. So I think generally, Harley, you're right that there is, there's that debt stuff. We should be thanking them for taking their own debt back off us. I don't know, like we'll all sort of bow down outside Westgate Street to our WRU saviors on that front. But yeah, there's a lot which is like you sort of like wry smile at it, but hopefully it will work out mostly in favour of the clubs. And I do hope that there is a genuine appetite from the WRU as well as the clubs, that it is a linked up approach, and everybody's working for the benefit of everybody, not just the one each club working for themselves, or for the particularly for Team Wales just making sure that Team Wales are okay. So that's a hope that maybe is not one that will materialize, but that's what we aim for anyway.
Anything to add, Fraser? Or I think that's all covered.
I think that's pretty much all covered. I guess it all ties it, like with you were mentioning the foreign qualified or non-Welsh qualified players. I think that ties them in the whole academy structure and making sure those who are coming in, if you're not signing someone who's a non-Welsh qualified, that the academy players aren't just thrown into stuff that they're not able to manage physically or skill wise as well. So it's just like it's a very fundamental structure change, or making sure everything is there, that feeds into those kind of decisions as well. So
yeah, absolutely. That's all I've got on the docket for tonight. Anything either of you two want to add before we sign off?
I've, in the course of this pod, discovered some possible sign-in news for Cardiff. It suddenly occurred to me while we were talking about the Challenge Cup squad that obviously you have to register your squad for Europe, and I don't think there's actually a limit, or if there is, it's like 70 or something stupid for the Challenge Cup.
It got changed. It was like 35, and then COVID they made it larger, and then they got rid of like the way like stand down and swapping players in and out and things. It's really weird now.
So I've gone on to our page on the Challenge Cup website, and lo and behold, there our squad is. And as usual, we've registered all the first team players and all the academy, and then a bunch of the Rags players as well are in there. Like Derry Cross is there. Just scroll down a bit more. Joe Goodchild is one of the back three players. Nathan Hudd, Sean Moore, the Rags captain, Ethan Lloyd, the scrum half as well. And then randomly appearing as a hooker is Lewis Morgan, who was Wales under-20s hooker. I don't think last year, maybe the year before last, was on the books at the Scarlets, got released by them over the summer, but has been playing for Carmarthen Quins in the SRC, and is certainly was, maybe still is, the top scorer in the SRC on the back of their driving mauls and stuff, and has been playing quite well for Carmarthen. So if maybe he's come in and trained with us a bit where we've had a hooker shortage and has been the travelling reserve, but that's one to look out for. I seem to remember him being relatively physical and quite big for his age, under 20s, and I think probably like Scarlets have had a bit of a hooker backlog there, haven't they? Where Ken and Ryan Elias have been around for so long, and a couple of the younger guys they've signed a few. Marnus van der Merwe's come in there as well from South Africa, isn't he? But yeah, that's one to keep an eye on of somebody who you might be taking a look at.
There you go. So there you go. So we're finishing off on a signing rumor. I think we'll go with that. I don't know why I was expecting you to say something like really crazy, like we've signed Bryn Bradley back, something like that. And
I'll look for like a massive name for next week. I'll just randomly pluck one out in the
air. Anyway, so first of all, I just want to say thank you, Fraser, for hopping on and giving up your Wednesday evening for us. Be great to have you back on the pod sometime soon, depending on allowing your work commitments to do it. And as always, thank you, Dan, for joining me as I ramble on and wittily, and then you bring some vague sense. And most importantly, thank you all for watching / listening. Good night.
No.